Google recently told employees in its global business organization department that they could take a voluntary exit package and leave with severance. 14 weeks of base pay plus one additional week for every year of service. Now, this memo was from the chief business officer, Philip Schindler, and it was direct. The game is dynamic, the pace is electric, and the stakes are high. His message was that everyone needs to be, and this is a direct quote, all in on the mission and embracing AI to have an even greater impact. Now, this is Google's third voluntary exit program in 8 months. They did this in June of 2025 across search, engineering, marketing, and communications, again in October with YouTube, and now again with their business organization. This is not a one-time move. It is a pattern. And the part that I want us all to be paying attention to is that Alphabet, the company who sort of like overlooks all of this, just reported record annual revenue of over 400 billion. This isn't a company in financial trouble. This is a company performing at its peak that is still telling its employees, if you are not aligned with where we're going, here's the door and here's a check. Google is not alone. In 2025, Amazon cut 14,000 corporate roles. CEO Andy Jassy said directly too, AI is going to shrink the workforce. Microsoft cut 15,000 jobs. CrowdStrike cut 500, and their CEO said AI flattens our hiring curve. AI was cited as a factor in over 55,000 job cuts in 2025 alone. And 55% of hiring managers are expecting even more layoffs in 2026 and beyond, with 44% saying AI is going to be the primary driver. So the question isn't whether this affects you or to freak out because you think all jobs are going away. It's what can you do to not be one of those people? Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Sabba Quidwai, CEO of Futurist at Designing Schools. Today, I'm going to be breaking down what Google's move actually signals, what the data says about where teams are headed, and then I'm going to share 3 strategies that are going to give you a human advantage so that you are never the person heading or being told there's the exit door. You're going to be the person your organization wants to keep around. All right, so let's get really precise. Google didn't necessarily lay people off in this scenario. They offered them a choice, and the details reveal the strategy. The exit packages targeted solutions teams, sales support, and corporate development. Large customer-facing sales teams were explicitly excluded. Now, Schindler said they wanted to limit as much disruption to their customers as possible. Meanwhile, though, Google plans to spend between $175 to $185 billion on AI infrastructure in 2026. They are not shrinking, they are rebuilding. And there's a tension here that I think is important to balance and look at. Research from the University of Pittsburgh, Professor Mark Ma, found that voluntary programs risk losing top performers, the people with the best external options. Google knows this. In June 2025 round that they did, executive Nick Fox wrote, "If you're excited about your work, energized by the opportunity ahead, and performing well, I really hope you don't take this exit." Voluntary exit programs are a self-sorting mechanism. They surface misalignment. When a company is accelerating, misalignment becomes visible, and leadership has to decide, do you slow down or redesign? Google has chosen redesign 3 times in 8 months. So why are they choosing this redesign? Well, here's the bigger picture. AI is changing what it means to be valuable on a team. When AI compresses drafting, analyzing, and synthesizing, the human value is going to shift toward judgment, strategy, and the ability to evaluate what AI is producing. McKinsey estimates up to 70% of work activities could be augmented by generative AI. And for any of us who are using these tools, we're like, no, of course they are. We're feeling it every single day. The ILO estimates 1 in 4 jobs will be transformed. But the data that should concern every leader, Forrester measures AI readiness at the individual level. They call this AIQ. And they said only 16% of workers had a high AIQ in 2025. This is projected to reach just 25% in 2026, and only 23% of organizations offered any AI skills training in 2025. So organizations are expecting AI readiness while barely investing in AI development for their people. When that gap gets wide enough, voluntary exit programs are pretty much what happen. Forrester also found that Gen Z workers had the highest AI readiness at 22%, compared to just 6% for baby boomers. But companies are eliminating entry-level positions, the exact roles that Gen Z needs. So the generation most ready for AI can't even get in the door, and the people in seats aren't really always building the skills the market now requires. Now, Amy Edmondson's research at Harvard is very clear and probably one of the best ones to look into when you're thinking about these environments, especially for change management. She calls it psychological safety, and she says it's the precondition for learning. If teams are expected to adapt, they must feel supported in that adaptation. Otherwise, you're going to end up getting a bunch of anxiety, not performance and motivation and enthusiasm. So the question for leaders is, are you investing in the readiness that you are demanding? And the question for everyone else is, are you waiting for your organization to invest in you, or are you going to be proactive and start building the skills you need yourself? And this is where the three strategies come in, because if it was up to me, I would never be waiting for anybody else to put together my learning plan. I would be proactive and doing it myself. So here's what I would do. Number one, I would think like a designer. Most of the conversation around AI and careers is framed around loss. What skills become obsolete? What roles disappear? What will AI replace? This framing is reactive and, quite frankly, negative. It starts with what exists and asks what will be taken away. A design thinker, though, asks a very different question. A design thinker says, not what am I going to lose, but how might we? How might we redesign this role? How might we create more value now that production is compressed? How might we use AI to do the work that wasn't possible before? And that shift, even though it seems small because it's just one different sentence, allows people to go from being reactive to generative. This, though, is a trained skill, and it's the single most important advantage a human has in an AI-shaped workplace. Now, design thinking, which is both a method and a mindset, trains you to observe before you solve, to sit with ambiguity instead of rushing to answers, and to gather insights from the people who are actually affected by a problem. This is why people who use this method are so much more successful when it comes to implementation. Now, one of the things that people who practice design thinking are really good at finding are what we call white spaces. These are like needs that aren't being met. They're things that aren't always obvious. They're questions no one is really asking. And these are all things that AI cannot do. AI can process, generate, optimize, and help you work with that information once you've gotten it, but it can't really walk into a room and notice what's not being said. It can't sense what people actually need. And more importantly, it cannot reframe the entire problem without actually being there. Think about what makes someone indispensable right now. It's not that they can produce faster. AI is really good at that. It's that they see what others miss. They're talking to customers, colleagues, and stakeholders. They are gathering and surfacing insights the data set didn't contain. They're helping connect dots. They are framing problems worth solving. They're prototyping, testing, iterating, and more importantly, bringing people along with them and getting results. When Google says they need people embracing AI to have even greater impact, we first have to be able to define what does greater impact actually mean and require. It requires the ability to observe how AI is changing workflows, to identify new opportunities AI creates, to prototype new ways of working, to bring people through transition with empathy. And that's not a job description. This is a design process that somebody in any role can adopt and integrate into what they do. AI is just a tool, but design thinking is the mindset that's going to make the tool matter and help you build the human advantage. All right, now let's get into strategy number two. You're going to clarify your value using my framework called SPARK. So you see, design thinking kind of changes how you see problems. You become more aware, you observe more, but you also need to clarify what you specifically bring. Not in a general, I'm a hard worker way, but with precision. Most people, if asked right now, what's your value in an AI augmented team? I think would struggle to answer it very clearly. And that's a gap. And we need to close this gap because that gap leaves people vulnerable when a memo like the one that Google sent out asking people to do this voluntary exit program arrives. So I created a framework called Spark, and I want you to actually do this, not just watch this with me. So grab a pen, paper, or your device. And I want you to go ahead and put down your situation. What is the current reality of your role, your team, or your industry? What's changing? Where is AI already shifting expectations? Next, I want you to name a problem. What challenge are you positioned to solve that AI cannot? Or what problems are just around you right now? Think of one and put it down. Where does your judgment, your relationships, your contextual knowledge create value that no tool could replicate? Basically, what do you do that AI can't? Next, aspiration. What do you want to be known for in 12 months? Not your title, but your contribution and your impact. What would your team lose if you weren't there? Then I want you to put down a result. What measurable outcomes can you point to? What evidence exists that your work creates impact, and where do you need to build new evidence? And last but not least is what we call Kismet. This is not for you, this is for your AI tool. Once you've done the SPAR, you go to your AI tool and say, give me 3 to 4 ideas for what I could do. Based on this information I shared, what opportunities or blind spots should I consider? Spark is going to give you 3 to 4 ideas that are ready for you to apply. This is basically like a North Star for your own career, not based on trends or the latest social media hack, but based on what you actually bring and where you can be intentional about growing and creating impact inside your organization. When organizations accelerate, the people who stay aren't just competent, they're clear. They can articulate why they matter and where they're going and the value and impact they are going to create, and Spark can help you create that. All right, last but not least, we have strategy number 3. I want you to start building your skills library. Now, knowing how to think and having clarity on your value, that's the foundation. But you also need a system that can compound and grow and help you create that impact over time. Not just using AI every once in a while to write an email a little bit better, but building a persistent workspace that gets smarter every time you use it. And this is where my go to and many other people's has become Claude. Now, the key to building a great skill is actually first running a Gemini deep research report and then saving that document and then uploading it into Claude and basically telling it, I want you to turn this into a skill. So here's how we're going to do this. We're first going to go ahead and go to Gemini and we're going to turn on deep research. I want you to use the prompt that we have here for you on the screen, and we will drop it in a guide down below as well, ready for you to copy and paste. Basically, what we're asking Gemini to do is go out and research design thinking practices so that it can curate all of the research and evidence around design thinking, the why behind design thinking, how to use it, examples, and all of those things. Now, once the deep research report has finished being created, I want you to export this as a doc. We are going to save this and come back to it in just a moment. Next, I want you to go ahead and go to Claude. Now, for this, I would recommend downloading the desktop version of Claude. So, before we do anything, one of the most important things to do is probably to build a set of skills. Now, if you come over here on the left hand side, you'll see Customize. And under Customize, you'll see 2 things: skills and connectors. You can basically connect any of your tools into Claude, and you can also create skills. Now, what makes skills so unique is it's not just teaching AI how you do something, it's also teaching it the ideal way in which you want it to be able to do something. So when you come over here and click, you'll see I have a lot of different skills here, but I want to walk you through one of the ones that I created and how I created it. Now, there's a lot happening here. Now, one of the things I want to say is if you are somebody who has been creating content for a very long time online, or even if you have any content online, one of the things you can actually ask Claude to do to be able to get your brand voice is basically ask it to go and do a full on search of all of your content, and it will do podcasts, websites, interviews, articles, blogs, anything you've ever done. And I actually had one episode that I really, really, really loved in my podcast. Like, if I could make every episode like that would be it. And so I told it to not only go off and like research my voice and all the different things, but to go and get that as well. And you can see it goes through like a bunch of things and it keeps doing things, and it starts creating now all of these different files for me. Now, these .md files are basically just text files that Claude uses to basically be able to like store its instructions. And what's great is you can actually take these files and use them inside of any other AI platform too. It's just that what's very unique about Claude is it stacks these different skills together. So we'll show you what that looks like in a minute, but once you build a skill, you just copy it to your skills and now it's in your skill library. But I want to give you a really quick look at what this looks like. So this is what it built for me based off of all the research it did for me online. And honestly, it was like better than I've actually hired people to do this, and I felt like Claude did it better. You can see right away it pulls out my sort of like main mantra. It has my origin story here. It has like a key quote. I really love this as well, like my core mantras, but I'll tell you what I really loved. It actually gave me a voice formula. I've never actually heard anyone do this before, but I thought this was just like so brilliant. Words I use, words I advise, my frameworks, and all of these different pieces. It was just like absolutely fantastic. One of the other things that you'll notice inside here is anytime it is using any of the skills or tools or anything, it will literally be telling you, and as it's doing the work for you, it will literally give you an update on the tasks and how it is progressing. So skills are probably one of the most important things to build. Now, skills are something you're going to want to stack. You're going to want to start creating as many of these as possible. And the key to creating them, like I said, is first running a Gemini deep research report to get all of that information together. Basically, you want to be looking at at what are the top 1% practices for people who are using that skill. If it comes to communication, presentation design, content creation, run a Gemini deep research report first, looking at what is the top 1% of people doing, the top 1% of strategies that are working for that skill, then go to Claude and ask it to build the skill. Once it's done, it's going to ask you to hit a button. You can add the skill to your library. And now anytime you're going in and doing work, Claude will know what different skills to pick up on and use those skills to help you create what it is you are trying to do. Now, to best organize these skills, we're going to use something called Claude Projects. And what you want to do when you're creating projects is basically name it something specific to your work: strategic leadership, client solutions, product strategy, content creation, presentation design, whatever it is that you are working on. You want a different project folder for each of those different areas. You can set some custom instructions that define how you want AI to work with you. Again, we'll drop those down below for you in the show notes so you can just copy and paste directly from the guide. But inside each of these projects, you now have a focus area. And every time you're working in that focus area, Claude is basically deciding what skills to use as it supports you in doing work in those specific categories. You are not anymore now just working with a chatbot. You have built an entire system of little AI teammates that are going to support you. This is a huge career advantage that is just getting stronger and stronger by the week as the capabilities get better and better. As these skills stack, you can start to look at many more: add a communication style guide, a stakeholder map, a decision-making framework, an industry trends document. Anything you need that basically is going to make your AI tool have more context is going to help you be more successful. The people who build these systems now are not just the ones who are keeping up with AI. They are building infrastructure and foundations that are going to help them be irreplaceable. Not because they can't be automated, but because they've built a compound intelligence system that amplifies their unique human skills, judgment, and capabilities. But again, none of this happens by default. It all happens by design. When Google gave its employees a choice, a very generous one, I might add: severance, clarity, no ambiguity about direction, I don't know that all organizations are going to be that transparent or generous. Nearly 250,000 tech jobs were cut in 2025 and over 39,000 in the first weeks of 2026. The companies making these moves are not struggling or going bankrupt. They're investing even more in these tools, but they know they have to build a very different kind of workforce. The three strategies I shared today all work together. Design thinking gives you the mindset to see opportunities where others see threats. Spark gives you the clarity to articulate your value with precision, and a skills library gives you a system that compounds your advantage every single day. Together, they are going to make you the person who leads the AI transition on your team or just for you as an individual, not the person who gets asked if they still are aligned or want to take the exit door. The time to build this is not when the memo arrives, it's now. And if this helped, I hope you subscribe to this channel, because on this channel, we don't react to change, we design for it.